had cake, I wouldn't kept them waiting.
Right. I see what you're talking about. Uh-huh. There's cake.
I mean, I saw the people out there. I thought there wasn't enough room in here for everybody that we're.
Oh, my.
However, you know what the priority is. It's me. It's me.
Yes, understood.
Gentlemen, ready? Okay. I call this meeting of the Kent County Commissioners to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and observe a moment of silence, specifically for those individuals who lost their lives in the wildfires of Northern California. Thank you. Okay. I have an invitation for the Board of Directors of the Eastern Shore Department of Social Services. It's going to be held in Dorchester County Department of Social Services in Cambridge on Thursday, November 9th, starting at 5:30 p.m. And this is a dinner and a discussion. Those issues. Okay. The Kent County Ethics Commission will meet on Monday, October 30th of this year at 3, the 26th of this month. Bill number 5-2017, which is an act to amend Article 5 of District Regulations, Section 1.4.A, Agricultural Zoning District, accessory uses and structures, adding 10.5, and Article 5 of District Regulations, Section 2.4.A, Resource Conservation District, accessory uses and structures, adding 9, to include waste management structures in the Kent County Land Use Ordinance for the purpose of addressing structures for the storage of manure and to provide certain standards relative thereto. This legislation was adopted on October 3rd without amendments, and provisions of this act shall take effect on October 13th of this year. The bill in its entirety is on file in the Commissioner's office. Anyone who would like to review that, please contact the Commissioner's office. For your interest, Comcast, I'd like to inform everyone of upcoming channel changes for Comcast customers effective on or about November 7th. WeatherScan and ESPN Classic will no longer be available to customers. From Anne Arundel County, from the county executive, as you know, the heroin and opioid crisis is providing the gravest of challenge for every jurisdiction in Maryland. Every day we read headlines about more overdoses and tragic losses of life. To help address this crisis in their jurisdiction, Anne Arundel County has launched Not My Child, a National Association of Counties award-winning initiative that serves as an educational and awareness forum. Our team travels to schools, businesses, libraries, and other venues to educate our citizens about the dangers of these drugs. Not My Child focuses on providing awareness by providing the facts on the misuse of illegal and legally prescribed drugs and the escalation of heroin in our communities. The county executive says that believes that Not My Child could be a powerful resource for our staff and departments. He would encourage us to contact their constituent services officer and Not My Child coordinator to discuss having their team travel to Kent County and conduct a forum, or having their team come to Anne Arundel County to learn how to organize and conduct such a forum. Take that under advisement. We have 2 sets of minutes for October 3rd, regular and liquor minutes.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded, the aforementioned minutes be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. For raffle permits, from the Betterton Still Pond Alliance Club, this is a combined gaming device for a single event. It be held at the Betterton Fire Hall on November 4th. In addition to thanks to Mr. Fithian, who taught me how to pronounce this, Seroptimus International of Kent and Queen Anne's County will have a raffle only at the First United Methodist Church here in Chestertown. The selling is between October 1st and November 30th. The drawing will be on December 3rd at 3 p.m. At that time. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded, the aforementioned applications be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye. All right, motion is carried unanimously. A special Class C license for beer only applied for by the Betterton Still Pond Lions Club as a fundraiser. It will be held at the Betterton Fire Hall on November 4th of this year. Since this is an application for a liquor permit, it requires a public hearing. Anyone have any comments for or against the aforementioned application? Hearing none.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Properly moved and second, the aforementioned application be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Yes.
And I'll make a motion we go into legislative session.
Second.
Properly moved and second to go into legislative session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I was waiting for Sandra to get on the phone person. She did a great job.
Boy, you have a... Okay. This legislative session is about Code Home Rule Bill number 4-2007, which is an act to amend Chapter 152 Taxation and add Article 9 Business Personal Property Taxes, paragraphs 152-36 and 37 on public utilities to the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland, for the purpose of affirming the percentage of value of business personal property of a public utility subject to Kent County property tax, providing for the taxation of operating personal property of a public utility and personal property used to generate electricity for sale. Okay. Now, this act was introduced and read for the first time on July 18th and has been posted as appropriate.
If I may, this legislation was patterned after legislation in Queen Anne's County county administrator and I reviewed it, and we had some concerns about the wording. We felt clarified to make more clear the intent of the legislation. We then learned that after Queen Anne's County passed their legislation, they subsequently amended it. So we amended ours to be consistent with the amendment in Queen Anne's County because their amendment addressed the concerns that we had. So we believe that they had similar concerns, which resulted in that amendment. So the county administrator and I are satisfied with the legislation as worded now, that we believe it clearly sets forth what it is intended to do.
And it is also our understanding that this has also been passed through the opinion of the Attorney General's office.
Correct.
And the questions that were raised at the public hearing, I'm satisfied have been answered, and so.
That's what brought it to the attention of me and the county administrator that it was raised in the public hearing.
Okay. Also, there is some comments from Washington College. Washington College has endeavored toward a viable solar solution for the past 5 years, and they have a site up in Massey that's under development for 3 years in Washington College, and Sol Systems have invested significant resources to arrive at this junction. They were concerned about any tax levied on this project. Want to cover that?
Shelley had a conversation with the state officials. I think she could.
That's verified that aggregate net energy metering projects such as this one are not subject to the tax.
Right. Any other?
Why is that?
It's the way the aggregate.
So anybody who wants to set up one of these solar companies, they can figure out a way to
The energy
co-op with, say, the Chestertown.
The energy can only be sold to nonprofits and government entities, educational facilities, so it's very limited.
Even though it's not on their property.
Correct.
Right. I think that's a state exemption for the tax.
Another one. It makes no sense to me.
Sale, you'd have to not be exempt.
Right. If it's sold to a private company, it would not be exempt. It would be subject to the tax.
Top Tank Electric or Delmarva Power would not
But
be.
does the college own it outright? Or is it somebody else's property that they're...
It's a solar developer.
Yeah. It depends on how the agreement is. If they use a PPA, then college does not own solar array, but they get the benefit of it.
The ANM projects are only available for certain types of institutions, so it can't be.
Maloney's farm for his own use, that's exempt. I mean, that's
I understand. I mean, but the size of the scale of this thing just seems to me it's a loophole that probably shouldn't be there.
I discussed that with that staff.
That's what it seems like it is. So if does it have to be a county? Does that have to be derived strictly from Kent County? So Washington College is the one who's applied for this and gets this, but say another developer comes in, wants to do a farm, and he wants to do aggregate metering through Chesapeake College using our land, and are they exempt as well?
It would be an educational institution.
So the only thing these guys have to do is outsmart the whole system, all develop some type of relationship with all these educational institutions that are exempt, and put that shit all across our county.
They're limited by the number of meters that can go on one of these projects. So it cannot be, by the nature of what can and cannot be one of these projects, it will be a smaller project. Something that you see 400 acres could never be an NM project.
That's it.
put it in the form of a motion, or do we actually vote just a motion to approve it? Make a motion to approve CHR 4-2017 business personal property taxes.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. And hope we did the right thing. Okay. We have. This is.
Motion to go out of legislative session.
Second.
Item number second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of a legislation session. Now we have University of Maryland Shore Regional Health Update. Mr. Cazell and Patty Willis is with you, or you come by yourself? Oh, please, yes.
How are you? Thank you.
Did you see her trying to get out of it? She was running out the door.
Yes, sir.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for giving us a few minutes of time on your agenda this afternoon. We greatly appreciate it. Let's do a quick time check just to make sure that you've got enough time for the rest of your agenda. How much time would you like to allocate to this discussion? 'Cause I can talk about healthcare for hours.
We do not, we don't, we, yeah, I don't think you
I
should.
don't think we need to go into the.
5, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I'll start. Thank you again. I'll start by sharing that on my way over here from my office. I listened to CNN on the radio, and what occupied a majority of the time of that discussion was healthcare. And apparently, there's more discussion now going on at the federal level about healthcare and the Affordable Care Act, and now there are senators that are putting laws together that could conceivably kick the can down the road even further with healthcare reimbursement payments and subsidies, federal subsidies to insurance companies. So healthcare remains in the news these days. Uncertainty is abound in this era, and I think at the end of the day, what the federal government is trying to do is bring more control for healthcare services to the state level. So just as there is uncertainty at the federal level, there is continued uncertainty at the state level. With what's going to happen at the federal level, but also what does it mean to Maryland? And as you might recall from our previous conversations, Maryland is extremely unique in that we are the only state in the country with our healthcare system the way it is, federally regulated by state agencies. So we stand out like a sore thumb with all of this change going on. And the question becomes, if more of the cost and management of healthcare is driven down to the states, which seems to be the federal vision at this point, what does that mean to Maryland? Especially during a time when our budget situation is tenuous at best, and we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in expense. So how does the state budget manage healthcare with regard to the overall budget, and still continue to provide access to care, and still continue to provide high quality care to meet the federal standards that will allow us to keep this unique system that we've got in Maryland? So a lot of turmoil, a lot of change going on at the federal and state level. But what I'm here to talk about today is Shore Regional Health's continued commitment to Kent County, and specifically to the town of Chestertown. As you know, we renewed our pledge to maintain our hospital here in Chestertown as an acute care facility through March of 2022. And even with all of that uncertainty that's going on, we are full steam ahead with that intent and with that vision. And what does that mean, though? What are we doing about that, and how are we living that on a daily basis? Well, it starts with having a leadership presence on a regular basis here in the hospital system here. So knowing what's going on a daily basis and being able to. And I believe you know Scott Burleson, our site executive. Scott continues to do an amazing job for us to not only make sure that our patients are getting great care, but that our physicians and team members are working well together. So that's happening on a daily basis. In addition to that, I provide regular forums, which gives our team an opportunity to ask questions, give feedback, and to help make our healthcare system better. We do that on a regular basis, and their input and feedback is critical, especially during these times of uncertainty here on the shore. So it's important that we keep the dialogue open and share with them what's going on with our organization and the role they play in helping achieve our success. In addition to that, we also just completed an engagement survey where we asked every single member of our organization, that's about 2,400 team members that are part of Shore Regional Health, to tell us how they feel Tell us what's on their mind and tell us what we're doing well and tell us what we need to improve upon. Again, critical to engage our workforce within the system that we're working on and help keep them in our system, keep them engaged, not just happy and satisfied, but engaged and willing to go that extra mile on behalf of our patients and each other. So huge commitments that we're making as a system to stay connected with our team. I also meet regularly with our physician community here in Chestertown, and we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's working, what's not working, who do we need to recruit to bring additional physician providers to our community, and how do we sustain and improve the services that we have today. So those discussions will continue and remain ongoing, as the physicians are a key role in our success as well. So all of those are examples of commitments, but I think another telling commitment is the efforts and energies that are provided by our foundation. As you know, our foundation for our Chester River Hospital System is made up of community members, and community members who go out and canvass the community to raise money for our healthcare system, specifically here in Kent County. And they have done an incredible job of doing that, especially, again, during these uncertain times. They are continuing to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for our organization, and their fundraising comes right back to this community healthcare system in the form of new equipment that is needed to replace aging equipment, enhanced facilities. So investments that we're making into the facilities, into the services, and into here on behalf of our community. So all of that all of those, in my mind, are vibrant examples of maintaining our commitment to maintain an acute care facility here in county. But even with that, the other thing that's been going on since the last time we met was the state rural study. The state said if we are operating in Maryland, we want to make sure that healthcare in Maryland is as consistent as we can possibly make it throughout the state. So how do they do that? They recognize that there could be a gap in rural healthcare and how rural citizens in rural communities like ours in the Mid-Shore are accessing and getting high-quality healthcare. We are one healthcare system for all. We want to make sure it's comparable in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and in the rural areas as well. And that is the role of the state agencies that regulate our healthcare. So they have recognized that there may be an opportunity to improve the way rural citizens get healthcare. And they conducted a study over the last year. That study had its last meeting at the end of September of just this past month. And from that study, I think we at Shore and the community here in the Mid-Shore did a very good job of educating our state about the unique challenges of rural healthcare, about some of the obstacles that we face in providing great care, and it results in our geography, our population base, which is low. We run about 170,000 people in the 5-county region. That covers over 2,000 square miles of geography, so huge challenges with those types of barriers, but also trying to provide high levels of services for hospitals that have average daily census of about 20 patients a day. Chestertown and in Cambridge, and then about 100 patients a day in Easton. So how do we manage 24/7, 365 full-service hospitals with those barriers? So we shared that information with the state. We shared the barriers and challenges, and we came up with recommendations. Those recommendations were finalized at the last meeting in September, and will go back to the state now for next action. That next action could be the form of legislation at the state level. It could be the form of additional funding to rural hospital systems like ours from the state regulatory agency of the HSCRC, which is our Healthcare Services Cost Review Commission, regulates costs and charges in Maryland. Or it could be the form of additional support from the Maryland Healthcare Commission, another state agency that regulates healthcare here. So all of those recommendations are making their way forward. The timing is that now we're trying to coalesce those into which bucket, if you will, do they need to go in for next steps. And if it goes to the state, they need to start to finalize these recommendations over the next few months because the state General Assembly begins right after January. So a lot of work to be done between now and the rest of the year. But again, that's another way that Shore Regional Health and our community is out front trying to preserve the healthcare services here in Kent County. And then I guess another telling example of how we're doing what we intend to do is by bringing more physicians into our community here. And that takes two ways, I think. The first way is that when private practice physicians want to come into the community, we do our best to support them. Our physician community, which is most important along those lines, embrace those new physicians, welcome them to the community, and make sure that they have the connectivity and relationships that they need to establish to be successful here. And in the case of Kent County, we have one cardiologist who just came into our community, who has opened up his own private practice and is in business now for the community here to complement the existing practice that was here. So in addition to private practice docs that want to set up their own shop, we also bring employed physicians into this community. In some cases, it's new physicians, like our primary care physicians that we brought in to work with Dr. Susan Ross. In the other cases, it's specialists that want to come to this community, not necessarily maybe on a full-time basis, but a couple of days a week to bring services back to the community. So we've done that in the case of diabetes, in the case of GYN, OD, in the case of cardiology again, and also with urology and pulmonology. All of those specialists, to one degree or another, we've had physicians either come in full-time and become employed, or be part-time or full-time within our system and rotate up to Chestertown and Kent County. So a lot of commitment there in the form of adding specialists to this facility so that our community members have access to specialist care here and primary care here.
And how do you expedite that process? Because when my personal physician, Dr. Legary, when he left and then Makuhu left, then there was a 6-month interval, maybe more than that. I'm just now getting in to see the new person. How do you expedite that in order to, keep people like that in our community?
That's a great question. The first thing is you've got to entice them to consider us for coming to this community. And the way you do that primarily is twofold. One is the salary that you offer them. Because these physicians are, especially endocrinologists, like the specialty you're speaking of, are in high demand across the country, not just in Eastern Shore, not just even in Maryland, but across the country. There's such a shortage of these types of specialists. So you've got to bring the money to the table. You've got to offer them not the 50th percentile, the average salary. You've got to get into the 75th percentile to bring them to rural Maryland. And then once you do, and if you're able to employ those physicians, you've got to connect them to the community once they're here so that they stay here. And that involves our physicians creating that fellowship amongst their colleagues. That involves other key prominent community members and engaging them in the community. So those kinds of things. And in the case of diabetes, it takes months and months and years in some cases to replace physicians who leave our system. The other option is not necessarily looking for a physician replacement as a provider. A lot of what hospital systems like ours are doing all over the country is looking at other advanced practice practitioners, like nurse practitioners, physician's assistants. Those types of specialists are more readily available and willing to come to communities like ours because they live in communities like ours and earn that advanced degree typically locally. So that's the other way that we try to populate our community with professionals that provide great care. So, but you've raised a great point, and that's what we also highlighted in the rural study is the challenge of workforce development in rural communities. But I shared with you the salary issue, and that takes me to kind of what reality also is while we're doing all of these things and making commitments to all of our communities on Shore, I want to put a little bit of reality check into what's going on at Shore as well. And that is that the healthcare industry is changing rapidly right before our eyes. The goals of hospitals just a few years ago used to be add volume, increase admissions, increase ER visits. Today the mantra is reduce admissions, reduce ER visits, move patients out of the hospital into the community for their care as best as possible, and reserve that hospital care for only those patients that truly need it. Reserve the ER care for only those patients who truly need emergency care, because it's the most expensive part of the healthcare system. And if Maryland and the federal government and the country is going to sustain healthcare, we have to drive down the cost. If the cost keeps growing, and right now it's 18, 19 cents out of every dollar we spend, we're not going to be able to sustain that. And then that's when rash decisions are made about closing hospitals and communities, about dramatically reducing services, about requiring people to go tens and hundreds of miles away for specific aspects of care. Maryland, the state, the country doesn't want to get there, but there is going to be a reality check. That is hitting us every single day at Shore. To the tune of, if I'd ask you today, what do you think our budget is for fiscal 18? Fiscal 18 just started on July 1st. We run it through June 30th of next year. What do you think the profit margin that we're trying to generate at Shore is this year? 10%?
Probably 2
Or 2.5.
to 3.
If you're running a good business, that's about what you need to sustain and grow and reinvest. Our margin this year, our budget margin is 0%. No profit.
Well, my son called me last night and he said, Dad, he went to the emergency room. He says, you ain't gonna believe this. They charged me for medication while I was in the emergency room. I said, well, what'd you have? He says, 3 Motrin, $290. 3 Motrin. He said, Dad, I'm not paying this damn bill. Yeah, that's the first thing he said. 3 Motrin. How is the profit, when you're saying profit margin, and a hospital can charge, because his insurance didn't cover it, charge $290 for 3 Motrin?
Built on every one of those 3 Motrin is all the overhead of keeping that emergency department 24/7, 365. That is probably one of the most common questions that gets asked in healthcare. Why do those little socks with the rubber on the bottom cost? Why do you get charged for those?
Well, we'll give them back to you.
He'd probably give you the Motrin back right now if you could.
But that's an important point, really, because I think what we need our community to be aware of is that our direction, our expectation, our reward and penalty in this healthcare industry in Maryland now is to avoid unnecessary utilization, keep patients out of the hospital. I don't know about your son's condition, but if there's a patient that's in the ER that shouldn't be there, that could be at an urgent care center, or could have been seen by their primary care physician, our job now is to facilitate that encounter as opposed to the emergency room. Our job is to not admit patients that aren't necessary to be admitted. Take that avoidable utilization, that potentially avoidable utilization, which is what we spend money on every single day, doctors, nurses, supplies, all of that, and try to put it in the most effective, lowest cost setting as possible.
Seems
So
to
we
be
hire people now that help navigate patients in our community through those.
a way to do that is to do preventive care, and we have our benefits coordinator back there, wellness.
You are
Yeah,
absolutely
you know,
right.
and
It's screening. It's education. It's
that's not the
screening.
way the federal government administration wants to go.
That's a challenge, is when you've got the feds with one direction, you've got the states who need that Fed dollar, because in Maryland, because of that unique system that I talked about, the federal government pumps $2.5 billion more into the state of Maryland healthcare than it does in any other state in the country. So in order to sustain that influx of cash from the feds, we've got to play by their rules. And their rules are run these numbers, avoid utilization, reduce the cost of healthcare, get patients to a lower cost setting, continue to drive down the cost of healthcare. So those are the rules that we're working under. Not here to argue or complain, but it's just the reality of what we deal with every day. But even with all of that going on, we still have a commitment to our 5-county system, our region, our 400 plus physicians, our 2,400 team members, to provide the absolute best care we possibly can for the 170,000 patients that live in this region.
Until 2022.
Well,
Is
and
it-
beyond.
Okay. It appears that you're in a mode of maintaining what you got. No room for expansion of services.
I wouldn't say that. I think our goal is to expand wisely, use our financial resources as prudently and as wisely as we possibly can. Case in point, in Kent County, we learned recently that a clinic that was available up in Rock Hall is no longer going to be available and provided to the community there. Over the next 30, 60 days or so, that clinic is going to close down. So what our job is we only have a limited amount of resources. I shared our budget with you. We didn't budget additional providers for Rock Hall. But what we need to do is work with our community partners and figure out what the best solution is for Rock Hall and for those patients who use that clinic. Is it a provider? Do we need to put a provider in that community? And is it 5 days a week or 1 day a week? Is it moving existing providers that we've got somewhere else in the region up there on a semi-regular basis? Is it working with the health department and other community partners to provide that care? Is it a welfare unit that gets there periodically? What are our options based on the need and based on our financial and human resources? So it's those kinds of things where you might not see that as an expansion of service because it existed under another physician provider under clinic that wasn't part of Shore, But these are the kinds of things that we have to deal with every single day to try to make sure that our community has access to the care they need. Because we know that if we don't do something and at least help, even if it's with transportation for those patients to get access to care, we're eventually going to wind up in our emergency department. And then we go back through the cycle of the most expensive care for patients that if they had screenings or wellness checks or better education about health, they might have been able to avoid that utilization. So those are the new thought processes that we've got in place that we work through every single day.
And the whole time you're trying to figure this out, the uncertainties on the federal level and
It
stuff
continues to
is
plague
just,
us, but we are not sitting by and waiting for that response. We're not even sitting by and waiting for the state to respond. With our physician community here, they said we need A, B, C, D, and E in this community. And we have worked hard to prioritize with them. We've worked hard to implement them. Not as timely as I'd love to, Billy, with some of the things that are needed here, but we've got a list. We are working that plan every single day, and we're holding ourselves, and our physicians are holding ourselves, and our community's holding ourselves accountable for our success.
Is there a difference between, I know you say there's a difference between state and Maryland and other states, but when the federal government's talking about doing block grants instead of, throwing out $2.3 billion, but maybe your block grant is still $2.3 billion, who knows? But what differs that from other states that they talk about getting rid of some of the hierarchy and bureaucracy and
Really no difference. Then it's up to the state to manage that block grant. And our concern is just how would the state allocate those resources? Would they continue to do it the way they're doing under the regulatory agencies? And would they look at rural health care as an additional need and block some of that money for us specifically? And the other thing is, how long will those grants sustain themselves? And will they continue to be at that level, or will they diminish over time? And what do we do as that progresses? So the concept makes sense, is to just take the same dollars over what you're spending today and let the states allocate it appropriately. But we know over time those dollars will diminish, and the state's needs will continue to grow. And how the state then manages those funds will have a direct impact on rural communities like ours.
similar to the pension plan. We should look down locally and wind up,
Fighting for everything you need.
everything you need. All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for both of you to come in. Thank you for staying in this chair.
And I'll get this.
Okay. Okay. Marty Hale, our personnel director. What else are you? Human resources. I'm sorry.
All right, well, thank you very much. Tonight we're here to recognize a long-term employee of the detention center. So, without further ado, we come up and get everything ready. Got everything?
Been a while since we had one of those.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this time, if Mr. Carlson would come up.
John Crossley's employment history. John was hired back in July 25th, as a correctional officer in the detention center. Good radio. He has served under 4 wardens: William Kelly, Bruce Darling, Ronnie Powell, and Rick Dennis. John is retiring at the end of October with 27 years, 3 months of service to Kent County and its citizens. Together with 2 years and 9 months of military service in the Army, he ends his career with a total of 30 years of public service.
award that we cut it October 27, 27. County Commission. Which I see a long run check. All right away from one. What's wrong? But I learned one thing about working president, that you keep it the same as you want. So you're gonna get treated by the way you treat them.
I know you're saying that for some.
No, not really, but that's just common sense, right? Treat people. 9 times out of 10. Not all of them. Most.
Very good.
Now, if traditionally provided some cake here. Yeah, I'm just waiting for it. Go ahead.
Ms. Joyce Pagowski bakes our cakes, and she sent me a little note. She said, in case anyone asks, she said, I started to do a jail cell, and she had a hole in her icing thing that squirted icing out, and it was irreparable. So she decided to make it to reflect the chaos and insanity of the detention center.
That's it.
Great. Put a picture with your co-workers and your boss. They're all here. Hold on. The organizer, he's coming out. You're gonna have to step forward and have 2 rows. You stand right here, front and center, step down. And everybody else, the 2 rows around him. You gotta so you get this picture. So you gotta come down here, don't be shy. Come on, Curtis.
Don't put Curtis in the back.
And Trish, why don't you come down and bottom? How can you do that? Here. Right here. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Or right here down the bottom. Right here. I tried.
Thank you, God. Thank you, God, again.
Congratulations. For those of you who couldn't see what we were referencing, this is what the page ended up looking like.
Some of them make no.
Johnny, come up, get first piece.
What's your battery doing on your computer?
It was about half juice earlier.
Technology challenge there.
Uh,
Yeah.
was it fully charged earlier?
It was.
And the thing wasn't even on. I turned it on when I came here, and it was half.
You have it, I'll give it to you.
So all of them was at 100%. Everybody else was like at 95 or 93%. But I don't. We had IT look at them last week and try to make some adjustments to it. But
Apparently, this thing's not holding a charge. So that's
so if we're going to go with it, I think we'll have to.
yeah.
No, thank you. Inside, outside?
Inside. I'm not a big icing eater.
Good, you maintain it. Stay on your regimen there.
Pretty good. I think my James.
And anyone else, please come up, get these cake without money. Don't be shy.
Please.
Herman just wants the rest of it. Look, Herbert, it's just.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
That could have been bad.
No, thank you.
Say 34.
If you want these, I can get you over here. Not right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
There's some, Sandra. There's some green on here if you want to. No. Come on.
Trip over. Come over here.
Yes, all right. Yay! He wasn't listening, you heard it. Yes, we are. Thank you. There is a package coming to you. Yeah, but they were on, but they weren't let every price. Right. Pardon me.
Yours is dying too. Yours is, thank you. It's not working too good either.
I got 40%, so I don't.
I know this thing. Mine drains really fast.
Or need to put that.
Nah, you'll have to go to the wall, but.
You can use it up under here.
I can make it.
Is there one?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks, I learned. Sorry.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Jamie Williams, Economic Development. I guess Jim Luff? Jim here? Okay. Let's see. Evening. You, sir?
Yeah. Good to see you.
You're so shy. Okay, economic development.
the agenda is the reappointment of 2 student members to the Economic Development Commission. We appoint them for 1-year terms. They both are still college students and still willing to serve on the Economic Development Commission. We'd like to have them reappointed.
So moved.
Second.
Probably moving second to reappoint the 2 student members to the Economic Development Commission. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. And the next thing on the agenda is the Economic Development Strategic Plan 2017, and Jim is going to review that.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Commissioners. We have also in the audience, they didn't want to come up, they were intimidated by you all. Members of the commission, Sharon Ramble, Cindy Gander, Bob Jacob, who worked on this plan for the entire time. We also, Kate Gray, who's not here tonight, but worked on the plan extensively. 2 of our newer members, Rob Thompson and Tracy Williams, kind of got in on the tail end of it. We still got them in the plan. And we'll recognize also 2 members who are no longer on the commission, but did a yeoman's job with this plan. Bob and Pula, representing SCORE, and also himself, and Dan McLeod from the Board of Education, before Dan moved up north. So those folks were basically instrumental in preparing the plan. And even though I know that it's online now and you all have it, I want to give you a symbolic hard copy. We don't do it much anymore, but I'm a little old school at times, and I believe in the hard copy. What I'd like to do is just very briefly take a few minutes and just kind of give you a summary, executive summary of the plan. Preparation of this plan, our intention is to create a living and breathing plan for the next 5 years, but yet maintain the ability to change, augment, and revise in response to economic changes. Members of the commission attended all of the comprehensive plan meetings were held at the high school, participated in the breakout groups, especially dealing with the economy, housing, towns, villages, and schools. We reviewed the survey that was done by the citizens in conjunction with the comprehensive plan, and we've had the draft plan reviewed by other economic development professionals. There's a thread between the 2013 plan and this plan. You go back and look at 2013, and what they wanted to do, of course, number 1 was internet, and that's being accomplished at this point. But the common thread was 3 areas: jobs, education, and housing. With this in mind, we embarked on the preparation of this plan. Our mission statement is the Kent County Economic Development promotes activities that seek to enhance the business community, the services and income opportunities available to residents, as well as the social well-being and the quality of life for all members of the county. In addition, our vision statement is leverage the county's new digital infrastructure to help retain and expand businesses and increase their competitiveness, as well as attract desirable new businesses, advocate for upgrading infrastructure, and developing a workforce to meet the needs of current and future employers. Our first course of action was prepare a SWOT analysis. And when we completed the SWOT analysis, we evolved this into our critical analysis. Successful economic development depends on the success of several critical sectors and on marketing that increases external and internal awareness of those successes. These sectors include digital infrastructure, ensure the completion of the gigabit fiber build-out, and conduct internal external marketing to build awareness. Educational excellence, support the continuing progress of the Kent County Public School System and its digital learning platform, and conduct internal external marketing to build awareness. Workforce development. The county has no training facility or service to provide a workforce trained for 21st century jobs, especially those in sectors targeted for economic development. Work with and support the continued excellence of Washington College and Chesapeake College to develop, support skills training and higher education opportunities and conduct internal external marketing to build awareness. High quality healthcare services. I don't know anything I can really add to what Ken and Patty just said, but essentially keep that on the forefront because healthcare and the ability of having a hospital that function like we've had in the past is a key foundation block for economic development. Housing. Attracting new residents to the county requires availability of the appropriate housing, including apartments or affordable houses for young families. The county is an attractive retirement destination and would be more so if there were additional retirement assisted living facilities. Transportation. The county lacks public or on-call private transportation services. The county transportation enables residents without cars who cannot drive access to external medical and commercial facilities. Recreation and leisure. Despite excellent boating and fishing opportunities and an active arts community, the county lacks a wide variety of recreation and leisure activities, especially for teenagers and young adults. Energy. A natural gas pipeline would reduce the manufacturing costs and home heating costs. Consider incentives to encourage solar homes. Explore federal support for creation of a distributed generation smart grid demonstration project. Infrastructure. Expanding water and sewer services, roads, etc., to areas designated for commercial and business development, or to enlarge municipal areas through residential growth is an important factor in retention, expansion. The whole plan really has three main goals. Focus on business retention, expansion, and attraction. Promote workforce development and education. Enhance infrastructure. To this end, the plan sets out a series of themes and strategies to try to meet those goals. Finally, if we are to achieve those goals, we need to be proactive. We cannot wait and expect business growth to come knocking on our door. We were lucky last spring in March to have the mayor from Middletown, Delaware here, who spent about a good hour with us talking about the things that have been successful for them in Middletown. I know at first a lot of people say, well, we don't want to be Middletown, Delaware. I understand that. But their core basis for what they did things work, and it will work for us. Those 5 factors, the key factors that they had. Number 1, the land must be zoned properly and correctly. Number 2, the project must have public support. Number 3, the necessary infrastructure must be in place. Number 4, the permitting approval process must be expedient. Number 5, local incentives, tax abatement grants, low interest loans, etc., are always an enhancement. But surprisingly said that's not the deal breaker. In most cases, I've always thought, and working with the county and economic development and also in Queen Anne's, that you had to have enticements because that's what other county did. They had enticement. They gave away electric. They gave away this. They gave away that. He said it's not. It's number 5. The other 4 are the most crucial things. They found that out with Amazon. They found that with the Swedish firm that's coming in now. They found that out with other large employers, that if you address those 4 items first and you don't have incentives, that's okay. If they want to come, they're still going to come. So we really want to key on that and look to those goals and to basically those 5 key things. I borrowed that from the mayor, and I'm going to keep that. I believe it's sound. It's a sound way to go forward. And that's going to be the basis for our plan. Okay. Questions? I'm much quick. I talk fast.
Very comprehensive. This past Friday, I went up to Delmarva Power's campus up in Newark. They had a technology symposium of all the technological things that Delmarva Power does. It was impressive using, I'm going to talk about drones, and there was lots of electric vehicles there. I didn't take. I wanted to ride on the electric motorcycle, but they wouldn't let me. Smart on their part. But there are lots of technology that is readily available that's being used every day by Delmarva Power. But very few people know about it. So I think it's an opportunity that we can get Delmarva Power to at least get you up there to see them, you know. sit down.
We can build those working relationships. It's just like we, of course, another component in the plan is the 301 corridor. I know we've talked about it before. You all talked about it. It's in the comp plan. But making that a reality, because that's just a stone's throw from Middletown when you really stop and think about it. And what I'm thinking about is that I've always said that Kent County, it would be more impacted, well, a drop down from the north, Middletown, Newark, Philadelphia, more so than Washington or Baltimore, because they just drop straight down. The others have to come down and go back up. So that's where it's going to come from. And now with the bypass, in stages of completion up there, the new Middletown bypass, and those folks who are going to go initially for jobs in those new businesses up there, they go into the planned developments around Middletown. That's where they'll go for the first home. But where do you think they're going to go on weekends when, like this time of year when it's fall and the sunshine out, and they want to take a ride on a Sunday? And they get in their car and they come south, and they drop into Kent County and start looking around. I almost consider that, wait a minute, we can buy a home here, and we can commute back into Middletown because it's only a 20-minute ride. So that's going to be the first impact we're going to see, is that wanting to get that drop down. And then, of course, the next thing we're trying to do is to find a way to provide the infrastructure so that someone wanting to do a distribution, wanting to do something with what's going to happen with the trucking going down 301, there would be that opportunity. The other thing we have looking at is a great opportunity for Kent County is that next year, I expect the planning office will be starting the comprehensive rezoning of the county. The comp plan is about done. It's about approved. When you all sign off on that, then they'll be ready to go into the zoning. That's where the real application comes. I mean, that you can have an area set aside for growth, but if you don't have the tangible zoning in place to allow that to be developed, then you haven't accomplished anything. It's just like the meeting that Mr. Richardson you're talking about overlay zones on the property that he's required outside Millington. Those are the key things that need to be done to hit that number one goal of having the correct zone property. The ones that have the PLAs that the state has, so your priority funding area, PFAs, we're not going to go anywhere with our development. We have to have that in the sequence of time. We have that opportunity. We just need to act on that.
Agreed.
I just want to add that we are still looking for input on the plan because, like Jim said, it's going to be a living document. The data in there was from MC, which we had just gotten on September the 13th. So there's some things that we want to look into a little bit deeper. So if anybody has any comments on the plan, please submit them in writing's best, and I can share it with the rest of the commission, and we'll adjust the plan accordingly from there. We've already received 2 sets of really good, insightful comments.
Talk about the 301 corridor, because it's been a topic for, I don't know how many years, but I know for the last 5 years, zoning has been changed there for the most part. Maybe some more has to be done. Can the Economic Development Commission, could you be able to put together a model of cost in order to do the infrastructure on that area up there, along with planning and zoning?
Yeah, it's only to take a look at it. I mean, we don't have that expertise on the commission, but I'm sure that we probably could tap some of the local engineering firms in the area, at least give us a range. I mean, we're not looking for, an actual figure, but give us an idea of roughly projected costs for and time frames for, let's say, enlarging the sewer system in Millington, or to a whole new system, and what would that new system be? Where would it go? I mean, could it be spray irrigation? Could it be all those things? Those need to be looked at. Of course, the first thing that almost seems like it's a stopping point is that realistically starting today with trying to get a discharge permit from the state of Maryland for sewage outfall, and then actually get a system in place, you're probably looking at 10 years. Well, we can't wait 10 years. We have to be able to make some things happen now. So we can look at that from the standpoint of trying to put together an ad hoc group, and I'm sure that Millington has already started on that with what they're doing up there. So certainly we can contact with them and seeing where they're going with it and how we can help. That would be a start. The other thing too is I go back again is that with the area being designated in the comprehensive plan, that corridor, Now with the zoning, we have to make sure that the zoning is applicable to ground that can be developed. In other words, putting it on top of non-tidal wetlands is worthless. And you're not doing anything that way. I mean, if you've got 1,500 acres up there, it's all non-tidal wetlands, you're not doing anything. So, we need to make sure that when this zoning is done, and I know that the planning office is already looking into those areas that are basically because of forestation issues, because of non-tidal wetlands, because of utility, because of infrastructure, or areas that just don't really meet what we need. Well, let's find the areas that are in that 301 corridor. I agree with you. That's all I've heard for years and years and years, the 301 corridor. Well, that's great, but where? You decide where it's going to be.
Right. Well, that corridor, that portion that's within Kent County, not looking at a whole lot of land. That's really a short area. Whereas when you look at off 301, not only Millington, but also going toward Galena, there's a lot more potential. I'll just say that. Potential.
Right. And of course, what Mr. Richardson, that couple of acres east had purchased, the one behind the food line, that area,
right,
would definitely be a prime area for Millington as far as their extension for both commercial and residential.
Right. And don't forget that there's also opportunities, potential opportunities to the east of Millington.
Right.
And we don't cross the river. That's another county.
Well, we just annex them.
I wanted to, but that's all right. Okay. Thank you very much.
She's took out.
I know you got more stuff.
The next item we have is a smart growth certification for the Dixon project out on Sheila Road at 213. And it's basically just certifying that the properties are in the priority funding area and all the documentation is there. So it just needs to be
Decades.
we still have to certify the property.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right, move in second that smart growth certification be executed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Okay.
And then lastly, next week is Economic Development Week.
Bam. All right. Kent County, Maryland proclamation. Economic Development Week. Whereas Kent County Office of Economic Development is an active member of the Maryland Economic Development Association, a nonprofit organization established in 1961 whose mission is to enhance the knowledge and skills of its members. It encourages partnerships and networking among people committed to bringing jobs and capital to Maryland and promotes economic development and investment in Maryland. And whereas MEDA members promote the economic well-being of Maryland by working to improve the state business climate and professionalism of the field of economic development, including other professionals with the interests of the economy in Maryland. And through its regular meetings, special programs, and projects, members address diverse issues. And whereas the economic growth and stability of the state affects all regions and jurisdictions of Maryland, the Kent County is an important component of the state's economic success. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the week of October 22nd through 28th as Economic Development Week to highlight the investment in partnerships and strengthens our competitiveness in Kent County, and ask all to join us to recognize and reaffirm the importance of business development locally and statewide. County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, William Pickram, Ronald Fithy, and William Short.
I would also like to read a part of the press release from the governor's office. And this is the governor's office, along with officials from Kent County and the town of Chestertown, announced the support for a new 150,000 square foot warehouse distribution center that Dixon Valve and Coupling Company is building in Chestertown. The company, which is a leading innovator in the hose coupling industry, is investing $20 million in the expansion, which broke ground in June. Operating for more than 100 years, the company is one of the largest employers in Kent County, with more than 340 employees. From this location, Dixon oversees 20 offices across North America, and 1,600 employees worldwide. So Kent County is committed to supporting Dixon in their expansion and construction of a new warehouse distribution center. The Dixon is, says Commissioner Short, Dixon is an industry leader, and we are proud they call Kent County home and appreciate their commitment to the community. Alcohol beverage license, Tom?
Yeah, if I may, the question comes up often about the restaurant license, 60% food sales, 40% alcohol sales. And we took a look, and I say we, Inspector Edler, County Administrator, and I, taking a look at the state code, and there's one provision in the state code that defines the restaurant as, for purposes of a restaurant license, as an establishment that has more food sales than alcohol sales. So you can meet that definition by having 50.0001 as opposed to 49.9999. And then it says a county by regulation, which means that state legislation would not be required, could do a different definition of that. But then with respect to Kent County, we have a special provision in the state code that defines it for us as 60-40. So one of the things we could do is, if the 60-40 was repealed, we would then revert to the state definition, which Inspector Edler did a survey, and most jurisdictions in the state go with the state definition, which is anything above 50%. But we could change that by regulation, which means it wouldn't require state legislation to do another percentage. Now, if we did that, my recommendation would be to change that up, not down, because I think we could make it more stringent than the state, but not more lax than the state. So, for example, if we were going to change it by regulation instead of 50.001, it would be maybe 51%, 52%, 53%, and up of food sales as opposed to alcohol sales. If we wanted to do something more than 50 but less than 60. With respect to our licensees, we've had a number of licensees that have struggled to make 60%. I think part of that is that with respect to inflation, and again, I don't have actual statistics, but it appears that over the years, the cost of alcohol in restaurants has inflated at a higher rate than the cost of meals. Like the ratio of what, let's say if you look back 25 years ago, what it would cost for an alcoholic beverage or drink in a restaurant, it's considerably higher now than it was then. Food's higher, of course, but probably not to the degree. So I think that could be a factor. And again, I don't have actual numbers to back this up, but I think that could explain in part why we have more establishments now that are struggling to meet that 60-40 requirement more than what we've historically had. The good news is that I think that we've had the establishments are really trying to be compliant and follow the law, because we had sent out notices to a number of establishments, and all but one, at least from the data that they have sent us, have gotten above that 60% requirement. Now, they are right on the cusp there, but they've managed to make it. We do have one establishment that is way below that, considerably below that, and in my opinion, I don't see how that establishment could make 60% unless there's a significant change in business plan or marketing or concept for that establishment. So that's something that you're going to have to look at as to how we want to address that one establishment that is not compliant, that wasn't able to get into compliance. And if you look at where they've been over the last year, I don't think it is realistic to think that this business is going to get compliant within the next, let's say, 30, 60, 90 days. unless they do a considerable change in their business plan. With respect to businesses that fall in that situation, one possible solution would be maybe doing a new class of license or doing something with the tavern license to say that if you have a tavern license and you have facilities for a commercial kitchen, facilities for food, and facilities for dining, something more than just having a bar set up where you have tables, perhaps saying that you could have under 21 individuals in there during the day. You set 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, some type of cutoff. But if you want to go that route, that would require state legislation.
But that has also been done in other areas of the state, correct? My
understanding is there are other counties where you have tavern license where under 21 can be in there during the day.
All right. The wine and cheese shop, the legislation we had done on the wine and cheese shop, what was their requirements?
I think they were. Sandra, did you have something you wanted to say on that? I mean, they're
wine and cheese. So we did legislation in order to make them be successful in Chestertown the best we could. So
that's not full wine, beer, liquor.
Right. It was wine and beer
right.
at the time. So whatever the legislation is, it is. But with
correct.
I understand.
More like a tasting, more like if people want to sample some cheese or crackers to go with the wine, they would sample the wine. I think that would lead to people buying a bottle of wine because the tasting is offered to complement the off sales, which is a little bit different conceptually than, let's say, an establishment that offers food but also offers a full bar and is struggling to meet the 60% requirement.
What we use the dollars as a measurement?
Yes.
Is there a way to use some other kind of measure and still achieve the same thing?
The state code says that when they define restaurants, I want to see if I don't know if Inspector Edler may have some comments on this, but it says, here's what it says for a restaurant. A restaurant means an establishment that accommodates the public, is equipped with a dining room with facilities for preparing and serving regular meals, and has average daily receipts from the sale of food that exceed the average daily receipts from the sale of alcoholic beverages. Then it goes on, by regulation, a local licensing board may set a different standard as to what constitutes a restaurant. So I believe the answer to your question is yes. But in order for us to do that, because we have in the state code state law that is just for Kent County that says a restaurant in Kent County has to have 60% food sales, we would have to request our legislators introduce a bill to repeal that section of the state code. And when that's gone, then we default to this, and we would be able to set by regulation a different standard for a restaurant.
Right. Well, my philosophy behind this whole thing is if things have changed, our alcohol laws, as far as I'm concerned, in the entire state have dated. That's why counties always have to go back and constantly change it, because what they're allowing now is different than was allowed 5 years ago. Your microbrews, your distilleries, all those things are new things. And if we want farm to restaurant, farm to table, and all this sort of thing, a lot of these things are being done. And we have to prepare for that. It's not just specifically for Al, but if we want microbrews to be able to come here and do the same thing and perhaps grow their hops, we have to be in the forefront of coming up with legislation that makes this work for.
I don't think we had the craft brew industry,
nothing.
The local winery industry when that 60-40 rule was set forth, because it's been there. We're trying to figure out how long that 60-40 rule has been there, and the answer seems to be as long as we can remember.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying, things are evolving, so we should be evolving with them in some way if we hope to use our economic development tools to bring other facilities like that, which people gravitate to. No matter where you go to parts of Virginia where they have distilleries, microbrews lined up. That is a big tourist connection for those places. We're stuck with now one distillery. Our brewery's already went out of business. Whatever we can do to assist all these different businesses, because that's the way times are evolving.
I think with a winery, that's kind of taken care of with legislation. But distillery, because it's more of a full bar, if you have a distillery with, let's say, a tasting room where food is offered to complement, that distillery is going to have a difficult time meeting the 60/40 rule. We have one distillery, and they're not making it. I mean, they're not even close. So the question is, right now, their choice is to do a different business plan in order to meet the 60/40 rule or 50/50. I would say they would have to do a different business plan to meet 50/50, given the numbers they're showing, in my opinion. Or that they're going to have to get a tavern license, which means they can't have anybody under 21 in there at any time, given the classifications of licenses that we have available right now.
Seems to me that's the one that could be the most effective, because other parts of the state has done it. If they can, because we are nothing but we have a lot of tourism. We're based on tourism here. Then, if those families want to go into these facilities because they are still a restaurant, not at volume, then we can accommodate that. I just don't understand that.
I guess the question is for the commissioners is what direction do you want to go in? Where do you want to go with this?
You're almost going to have to do something, I think, somehow out of the box, because as you just mentioned, that one business, I mean, you'd really have to lower that 60 for them to be able to make it. I mean, you'd have to come up with some other idea.
Or you can keep the 60 and change the criteria for the tavern license.
Right. But you have 5 other places here that have struggled, and how many months does it take them to get back in compliance? It's not just, and here, those are 5 right here in the general facility of Chestertown area, where the bulk of the population is, and they're still struggling. So if you get outside of Chestertown, as these things start to grow, which is our hope, my hope is they grow, because that brings more people here to do more things.
And we do know that these establishments all have full kitchens. They all advertise, promote food, and they're still struggling.
Right.
And they made it, but it was a challenge. Inspector Edler, do you have anything to add? I know you've spent a little time researching this too.
Talking to the establishment mall, 60 is hard for them.
Rob, can you come up so we can get it on the microphone? Yes.
Yeah, like I was saying, the ones in question, the 60/40 is they're doing it, but it's very difficult. After talking to a lot of the other counties that I talked around, 8% of them, it's 50/50, and it's a lot easier for them to maneuver. The deal with the distillery, I know it was, I can't remember what county, but some of them put the time limits. If you're under 21, you can be in there until 7 p.m. And then
that's probably the direction we're going to have to look at, because you can't lower that 60 far. I mean, you'd have to almost cut it in half for them to even have a chance at making it. But numbers they put in.
That's for the distillery, but as far as the other places, like these other businesses, those are just failing in most cases. They're 6%, 5%. So if whatever legislation we do can benefit not just them, but all restaurants, unless, they shut down 3 months a year and operate under a different license, one of them do that. We got to just do it once is my point.
I think based on the numbers we've been seeing, if for the restaurant license, if you defaulted to the state definition, the establishments that have been struggling to make 60/40 would pretty much be in compliance year-round. I don't think we would have to send out violation notices, assuming the numbers stay the same, because they hover between, about 50 and 65%.
Give or take, yeah.
And it takes, is it a monthly average they use or an annual average?
We have been doing it monthly because they were in violation, but I think normally it's, every 6 months?
Let's all give us some thought, I would suggest. Try to come up with a scenario tonight
Right.
Such short notice is kind of hard, but if we've had a chance to take a look at the numbers and think about it, maybe there's,
I mean, if we did something that, would benefit them, I think it would come out ahead.
I mean, you're right, alcohol and the enforcement of it and all that has really changed in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, that's
Very much.
a lot. So it's worth taking a look at. We certainly don't want people to be driven out of business if we can avoid.
That's my biggest fear. If they have to change from a Class B to a Class D, then a lot of these places that allow the kids in there for the meals and all, they're going to lose that business. And you don't want that.
But always be mindful that we do have a significant group of underage here around. So.
Told Rob does such a great job of the tips class, there's hardly ever a violation anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we will take that under consideration. Okay?
And we do have.
But don't go anywhere.
Because we do have the. I don't know if you want to discuss the one business that gave the numbers and is just clearly not compliant with 60/40.
Give us some time to think about it.
Well, we put that in abeyance.
Okay.
I'd hate for them to
Right.
be put out of business or something, and then let's come up with an answer somehow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We may wait a year.
There are some provisions in the Maryland Annotated Code that have been identified. Would you like to go over them, Tom, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go?
Summary. The board hearing. Board shall hear a case within 30 days after the violation is reported. Board shall make a determination of the case within 15 days. And the penalty for the first violation is fine not to exceed $1,000, a suspension of the license, or closure of the place of business not exceeding 15 days. So for second and third offenses, there are more listed examples.
So we have to hear this because he was given he's been.
It'll have to be addressed.
So that means we do have to come up with a plan. Legislators are already aware, but we can still kick a little bit to help.
My suggestion is still put the whole thing in abeyance until, if that's permissible.
Tom?
I think what you can do is, it's been before you, and I think hearing a case means having it come before you. I think that you can defer consideration as to how you're going to address the violation,
which we just discussed. And
it says, shall make a determination of the case within 15 days.
Well, after conclusion of the hearing, you haven't concluded a hearing.
Thank you.
As long as it's in the discussion phase,
You're holding it open.
Right.
You're holding it open right now for further determination.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
All right.
Satisfied? Okay. You have some more thing dealing with this.
Yes, I do. There are 16 semi-annual renewals up. They've met the criteria and recommend they be approved for the next 6 months.
So moved.
Second.
Party moving. Party moving second to approve the 16 semi-annual liquor license renewal applications as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. That's it. Marty Hale, Director of Human Resources.
Did you read that whole handbook? Did you read that whole handbook?
Of course not. Only the applicable sections. Glad to see you.
Oh. Hey, see you coming up.
Whoa.
Well, the fun's just getting ready to start. Almost got one of them.
What do you want to start with?
All right, well, gentlemen, it's finally come to that time when we're going to discuss the employee handbook. As you're aware, this is probably the fourth or fifth iteration of it, and I think you've had time to look at the draft proposal. You may have some specific questions, but let me know if it makes sense to go through the list of exceptions or changes to it. The rest of it, there's no material changes, or we're just carrying forward existing policies that seem to work well and are in compliance with the laws of the day. But we've made some suggestions to change some of them, and we've highlighted that in an exception sheet. So does it make sense to go down the exception sheet, or do you just want to ask us some questions? Or
I got the only question I have, and I understand most of what you've put together, but we're changing that health benefit for people that retire.
Right.
And I'm just asking a question. Is it fair to take something, I mean, when these people signed up to become employees, I mean, they looked at what the benefit was, and we're taking something away maybe just before some people are able to take advantage of it.
Well,
do we do that, or do we make it effective for
New hires?
Well, we certainly could do that, but there's a grandfather provision in it as well to that leans to anyone with 25 years of service or 20 years in LEOPS, and the spouses are covered on June 30th of this past year, that they would keep the benefit, for the spousal benefit.
if they've been here at least 25 years?
Our thought process was if they're using the benefit, then that's a benefit that they were working toward keeping in retirement. But if they're not covering their spouses now, then they're not using it.
I agree with that part.
We did a cutoff, we did a grandfather that if you currently have 25 years, 20 with LEOPS, and you're covering your spouse at the end of, or on July 1, that means you are actively using that benefit, and it's a
Right.
benefit that you would expect them to want to continue to use. We grandfathered them in.
Okay.
But if they're not, we don't. And we did that because we were afraid as you move down the line, and you'll see in the estimate that we presented of the retiree benefits, we didn't want the retirement, the OPEB benefit to be so cost prohibitive that you can't afford it, so it goes away for everybody. So we were trying to preserve a benefit for those who actually work for us and give that benefit to them, not a spouse or dependent. And it reaches a point where nobody's going to have it because we can't afford it. That was our thought process.
Right, and a couple of things have come into play as well. I mean, when the old manual was written, and certainly through the years, before the Affordable Care Act, a senior citizen losing their health care, so I'm talking about the spouse of an employee losing it, it would be very difficult to replace. We're in a climate now where there's, with the Affordable Care Act, that there's options out there and available to individuals, and certainly when you move into Medicare, there's gap coverage and everything like that. So there's benefits that are being provided that weren't provided years ago when the original benefit, our policy was crafted.
So do we
other side
and act on that now, because everything's in chaos when it comes to the Affordable Care Act and where it's going? Are we premature in acting, or do we give it a year and then figure out how to implement this?
Well, I'm not sure, but in the next 5 years, we're pushing almost $500,000 of retiree OPEB benefits.
What has it been in the past?
Right now, it's about $175,000. There's $130-some thousand of people that currently already qualify for the benefit, and then $139,000, I believe. Tell me, if I'm wrong, maybe it's 179. I'd have to look at the chart we provided you. But all of those total up to close to $500,000.
After the Affordable Care Act was passed, did that result in what it cost to us for the benefits of the retirees to go up?
Well, part of I wouldn't say problem, but part of the consideration is when the original one was in place, we were a fully insured employer. We paid the premium. It didn't matter what they
Cadillac
spent.
plan.
It was, it was paid for. Now we're self-insured. So we're paying for benefits up front. And so that kind of went into the equation too.
Kind of what Ronnie was saying, though. I don't know if the words in his mouth, what I'm envisioning, again, these people are coming here, they're working for lower wages in most cases, especially at our lower level jobs. And if they work here for, they started here and they've been here 20 years and they're not in LEOPS, so they're going to lose that benefit, is what you're saying.
Well,
They're not losing their benefit.
But even if their spouse, what if their spouse is on
They've
it?
been here 10 years, and it's a husband's working for us.
Yes, they would not keep the benefit
Right.
based on what we're proposing.
And do we adjust their salaries? Do they have a plan?
You would, whatever you want to do, it's just our suggestion. I see what you're saying. It's.
I mean, something's got to change. Either they have more money to invest somewhere to be able to offset what maybe they're planning because that's what was sold to them.
Bill, I think what I was trying to say, and I think the same thing Billy's saying, like when they signed on the bottom line that they were going to be our employer, we offered them a certain benefit package. In that personnel policy, it stated what their retirement was going to consist of if in fact they stick with us 30 years.
We should honor that.
I think
That's fine. We were just offering
Well, we can make it effective, July 1 of this year.
You can all
That-
grandfather it for
any
those
new,
who-
Right.
any new employees that come on board,
Right.
and then we didn't promise them anything. The new ones. I mean, they're operating
safe,
under
John.
our policy.
We understand. We understand what you're saying.
Because I tell you something about that, and I remember when that was put into effect, the logic kind of behind it was we didn't want people. If somebody gives us 30 years of employment, they've been a dedicated employee. And I hate to see them put 30 years in, get their retirement, and then have to spend the best part of it getting health insurance. And that's when we added that health insurance piece to it, because we want their retirement to be able to, hopefully people can live on it after. So I'm a hesitant to take any of that away right now.
I don't disagree with you, but we were looking at it in the long term. The more people you insure, the more money you put out, you're going to reach a point where you're not going to be able to afford it, and then nobody's going to have it, even the retiree who worked for you. That's where we were coming from.
And we're not funding this liability. I mean, right now, we're able to handle it on a yearly basis, but people that are, employers that are seeing trends of increased OPEB costs are putting money aside now to cover those liabilities in the future. And we're not doing that.
Allowed to do that as government?
Yes, but when the government put GASB 45 in, everybody, looked at, had actuarial studies and looked at what it was going to fund. We funded it 1 year, and then the economy tanked, and we stopped funding that. So we put away the very first year. So I think at that time it was, if you're funding it, it was $180,000. Unfunded, it was almost $400,000. And we're now 10 years past that with not funding it. So as these costs go up, we have to afford them in real time.
Would it be possible to go ahead and approve the policy except for that one item? And I tell you, there's like Ken Cazell was talking about. I mean, things are really in turmoil when it comes to health insurance, and I'd rather maybe revisit it in a year or two when things settle down a little bit and people have a little better understanding of just what health insurance is going to mean and what it's all about.
Well, you can direct
then we
us
could
to-
revisit it whenever.
Well, we could still.
Direct us to craft it at, new hires, this is the benefit starting date,
The thought process, that's probably an important step to make. new hires effective July 1 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that because we haven't promised them anything, but we promised some of our employees that this is what we're, if they changed in the middle of the stream, we wouldn't like it.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
The date of the resolution of the manual, if that's what you would like.
So what do you think about these employees that worked 29 years for us and then and didn't insure their spouse? And then in year 30 say, oh, sign them up?
I think the majority, I would feel like the majority of the years, whatever the policy they've been paying in for, is what they ought to get when they retire, or whatever they have the last 10 years or 5 years.
Okay, so we can write that as well. So
I don't care about
in
that.
this manual,
I agree with you about somebody being single insured right up to got 1 year left and then put in for a family plan. I don't want people taking advantage of us like that. But
so what we did in this policy and in the grandfathering piece of it, we wrote and consistently insured their spouse for 7 years. Do you have a preference on the length of time, or
I'm fine with that, really.
But if it starts at the 22nd year of employment and they've been doing it for your 7 years, then they get fully vested there. As far as insurance goes, they qualify for their spouse.
According to what Marty just said, yes.
Right, according to what he just said.
Yeah,
So
when
we keep the plan-
year 23, they insure their spouse, and they insure them for 7 years, and then they would have the benefit in retirement.
Right.
Right there.
Okay.
So
So
let-
just take out the grandfather, just say, current employees, as long as you've insured your spouse for a minimum of 7 years immediately prior to retirement, you can have a retirement benefit.
Right.
And all new hires, as of the effective date of the book, they only have single coverage at retirement.
You'll get the health benefit for the employee,
Okay.
provided the rest of their life.
Another question I have here on the same thing about personal leave. This sentence says, if your employment ends, you will not be paid for any unused personal leave.
We don't pay that out now. It drops in on January 1st.
They're not talking about annual leave.
No,
Oh,
just personal.
okay.
Personal.
I'm looking at the
Personal
same thing.
days or take care of different things, personal.
Use them or lose them.
Use or lose those.
Okay, that's fine.
Allow banking of vacation time to a certain point, and that's paid out.
But
And sick leave is paid out to the retirement if you retire from us.
Right, okay.
Right.
Understand. I was misunderstood that paragraph.
Yeah, that's the only one that use or lose. And obviously, after 400 hours of vacation, it's a use or lose situation as well. But that just means that you have to start taking your vacation in real time. Okay. See any other issues with the exceptions, the things that we highlighted as we made changes to the policy?
That's the only thing I had. And if you want a motion to approve that,
We have a couple of questions.
We have a couple of questions that we need clarification on.
Go ahead.
The first one we took care of was the retirees. On page 21, under salary administration, Marty had said.
I had mentioned.
He had mentioned the possibility. Go ahead.
Okay. We currently have a policy that if an employee is working out a grade at a higher grade, our policy says for 15 consecutive days they would get the pay differential of the grade. Now, I run that in real time. If someone comes to me, for instance, a supervisor is going to be on FMLA and they're appointing someone or moving someone up to act in their behalf, and I know that it's going to be a length of 15 days, I run that in real time. I change their salary. But we run into situations occasionally where an employee might do 5 days this time because the supervisor's on vacation, and then 3 weeks later they do 5 more days. Currently it's consistent
15 consecutive days.
Do you want
I'm keeping it the way
my
it is.
request or my issue is, did you want to change that in any fashion?
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
I'm good. You do the workers' comp, so.
And the workers' comp, our current policy is very generous. It is very outdated compared to most other places, and it's becoming very cost prohibitive. So you've agreed to change it as proposed.
Right.
Our question is, we have one employee currently out of work on workers' compensation injury. do we grandfather that person into the current policy until they return to work, and then the new policy kicks in?
I think that's the way you have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't change it.
Just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
And then once they return to work, if they go out again, they fall under the
New
new
policy.
And I would make that very clear to them why they're out now.
Yes. Okay.
And I guess, want to circle back around to the drug testing policy. Currently, we drug test.
Everybody.
Obviously, CDL is going to everyone. Or it's in this manual is everyone. I just wanted to make sure that that's your intentions. I checked with the school system today, and they don't drug test their employees.
What's drug testing cost?
What's it about $50? Yeah.
$51 a test.
But our current policy, we've amended it so all employees fall under it. Our current policy only covers safety-sensitive drivers and
DOT.
And, well, DOTs in their own,
Yeah.
but the other employees. So there
That's
is
for the random.
there is
The
for the
new
random.
hires
There
are
is a
100%.
group of
New hires are
employees
100%.
That once they become employed, unless there's reasonable suspicion of an accident, they never have to worry again. And the new policy takes that out. Everybody is treated equally.
Well, I think and we do it once a year, twice a year.
It's random. It's
So it's
the
the same
computer
person-
draws it, and
the same
they
person
can be
get called twice?
drawn
They
3
get
times in a
called every
row.
quarter if the computer calls.
But does every employee under that get called at least once a year?
No,
No,
it's
it's
random. A computer in Easton draws the names.
Or you might get called
Right.
3 quarters in a row, which has happened. It just
John's running out the back door.
Well, I will tell you, my issue is that
We felt everybody should help.
everybody's is covered, and that's the fair thing to do, and everyone has a potential of driving a county-owned vehicle.
And how does that system work? They throw them on a machine and
We update a list once a quarter and send it back to the company that we use, and they put it into a computer, and a computer draws the names and sends us the list.
Social Security numbers.
And then we call them, we stagger it through the
Yes,
quarter.
It's a
But
very fair system.
yeah, we don't have anything to do with it. That's why we use the company to do it, so we're out of it. We simply update the list. Like in this case, if it goes through everybody, then we would take off the people who left us, add the people who were hired, and send the list to them, and the computer would draw the names.
Okay.
That's it? Now, we want to adopt this policy with the,
Amendments. So moved.
except for the, just talking about.
The insurance, we're gonna do the.
Amendment.
Yeah, we're gonna change it to reflect that all current employees have that benefit.
Okay,
As long as they insure their
7 years.
spouse a continuous 7 years prior to retirement.
Gotcha. All right, you made the motion?
So moved, yeah.
Second.
Properly moved and second, we adopt the changes to our personnel policy manual. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited. Really am. I don't know how that works.
We leave it up to Sandra.
Wasn't that sent down with the
It's done.
Yeah, we have. Oh, yeah, they have one.
sent down with briefing?
Oh, okay.
I'll get some hires too.
Yes.
This says the vacant part-time recycling, isn't it? Lynn?
That's first.
All right. First, we have a request to approve the hire of a part-time as-needed recycling attendant that'll be filling in at the landfills. This position works Saturdays and then fills in for other employees who may be out sick or on vacation.
But it is budgeted.
It's budgeted, and
Just a
we
vacant
did the interviewing, and
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second to hire the selected individual for a part-time recycling attendant position in the Public Works Department, Environmental Operations Division, as requested, pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
okay. Next up is the other Public Works.
Full-time maintenance worker.
Okay, yeah. All right. Next up is request to approve the
Maintenance
vacant
worker.
maintenance worker position in the Public Works Department, buildings maintenance. Let's see, was created when an employee left. We had 5 applicants. 1 did not return our calls. 2 were interviewed. on October 10th by Bob, Merritt, Marty, and we're requesting the approval to hire the individual listed.
So moved.
Second.
Probably move a second to hire a selected individual for the maintenance worker vacancy in the Public Works Department Building Maintenance Division as requested pending successful completion of county pre-employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, next up and last is request to approve full-time office manager position in the Parks and Recreation Department. The vacancy was created when one of our office managers left to go to another jurisdiction. We solicited applications internally and externally, of which we got 30 applications. 20 of them met the minimum qualifications. 10 of the most qualified were chosen for interviews. We conducted interviews on October 3rd and 4th. It was myself and Ira Butler, and we recommend the candidate listed on the page.
How many people applied for that? You said
30 people total, and we had a couple of internal applicants apply and then withdraw. So we had 30, 20 met the minimum, and we selected 50% at 10.
Very good.
We generally do have good responses to the administrative positions.
So moved.
I'm going to abstain from this one.
Okay.
Only, not that I don't think she's a great person, but I'm going to miss her.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll second the motion. It's probably move a second to hire a selected individual for the office manager vacancy in the Parks and Recreation Department as requested pending successful completion of county employment requirements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. One abstention.
I believe that's all I have, unless you have any other questions. All right. Thank you. And I want to take just an opportunity to thank Lee for all of her hard work on the manual. We sat together for the first 3 or 4, and this last one, of course, by then we had worked out most of the policies, but she grabbed the bull by the horns and put it together.
She worked very hard on this.
So she did a great job, and I want to thank her for that.
Great cake.
Serve.
The chaotic cake.
She does more than just be the cake lady.
Very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you very much.
Greg? You still back there?
Congratulations. Over and over again. Deja vu all over again.
Okay, we have 2 items tonight for water wastewater. One is to, we need the council to accept an increase in the penalty rider for the Delta Heights water line. So a while ago we decided to add on to the water line the Bayshore Loop.
So the bond's got to
So
be
the
higher.
bond has to go higher, so.
Motion to approve.
Second. It's probably move a second to agree and accept the increase in penalty rider. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion is carried 2-1.
Okay, the second item is approval for a change order for engineering services to, on the Galena wastewater treatment project, wastewater treatment plant. It's change order for engineering services, some extra services during the actual construction of the plant itself, but also to design and manage construction for 2 additional buildings. One will be a maintenance building that will store equipment such as what we have here, the mowers, snow blower, trailer, lawnmower, town truck, so on and so forth. And so it's not sitting out in the in the weather.
Now,
The second is a blower building.
But
Loan money has been expended, so now this is in the grant money
Yes.
part. So the cost to the county is 0.
right, that's what I was, I thought.
okay.
Motion to approve.
Second. Probably move a second to approve the engineering change order as submitted. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion is carried 2-1.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, well, while you're standing there, what's the deal with Mr. Hall? Is he signing? Is he not signing? What's he doing?
Okay, so, well, there's two sides to it. Right now, he, as a matter of fact, this evening I got an email from him as far as some information we needed from him to calculate how many allocations he would have for the, because he wants to know what his sewer charges are going to be.
Why? He wanted this project.
Yeah, well.
Now he wants specifics.
Right. The other thing is we sent him an easement. Our understanding was that he was going to grant us an easement for the pump station property and also for ingress and egress. We have a county road that ends shortly before the pump station property, so we would need to get ingress and egress from the end of the county road to the pump station. We sent him an easement back in January, followed up. So he requested, we sent him an original easement, and then he had some changes which we made. We thought we were all set. Didn't hear from him. He then requested a meeting, so we had a meeting with him recently, just a few days ago. And he would like to give us the land so we have it in fee simple rather than us having an easement. The issue there is, given the size of the land, it appears that it does not meet minimum, correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't have the conversation with the planning director, but apparently the parcel does not meet the minimum lot size requirements for the district that it's in. So,
let me cut to the chase
Yeah.
with this. This thing has been going on far too long. I mean, this should have been taken care of, and I'm not pointing the finger. I mean, not on there. This thing should have been taken care of, not months ago, but years ago. At least a year or two since this thing's been done. I suggest, and I'll make a motion, that we put a deadline on this thing. And if it isn't done, if we don't have an agreement by that deadline, then we just take his parcel out of it and go on with the project. I don't want to sit and just dilly-dally with, this is unacceptable.
yeah, the easement was first sent to him early January, so it's been almost a year.
And he's known about this since conception of this approval of this whole plan. Is there another place, is the engineers done any other studies, is there another place to do a pump station? Anywhere?
We only need the pump station for his property. If his property doesn't
do it without
come on the
it.
system, we don't need a pump
We
station.
don't need the pump
The
station.
rest can be gravity fed, is that correct?
Well, it would be pressure, but it would be fed by individual
pumps.
grinder pumps.
Right.
Without the pump station.
And I tell you,
Well, we've given him a deadline of October 31st.
then
So, well, right now it's back in our court, and we're exploring whether or not he can convey
I don't
the
think it's
land.
back in our court. We had this easement
Right.
idea, and that's been kicked around, and I think we stick with that. And if he doesn't want to do that easement, then let's move forward, and we'll just take him out of the project. But he's the one that's got problems up there.
Right.
And I tell you, what he needs to think about is if he goes along with this project now, his hookup fees are free. They're built into the project cost.
Correct.
If he waits and isn't part of it, and he comes back next year, and the health department says you're going to hook up, he got to pay for all those hookups. So somebody better be rethinking what he's doing, because we're tired of playing games. He's holding up that entire collection system, and he was one of the main people that needed it, and we put it up there. So if I say we go with the easement, if he don't adopt it, move forward.
Actually, if we design it without the pump station, it's a denied access line. He will not be able to hook up to it.
Well, that's his choice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Although there is law that if you have, the health department says that you have a failing system, even if you abut a denied access line, you can and should hook up. You just can't expand.
And he was
You can
in
hook
that
up what you
emergency,
have.
the whole reason this was done, he was the emergency. to keep it out of the sassafras. So we've got that going against us right now. But I still think I think the whole thing is he's just trying to get out of he wants to be paid for the little piece of land. And that is just unheard of when you're doing a $6 million project.
He did say that the transfer, I did raise that issue with him, and because I made that same assumption and raised that issue.
If that's what he wanted. He should have told us that a year ago, not now.
No, he's saying he doesn't, right, he wants $1 for it. So the question on the table right now is...
Well, he does want us to pay the street light, the utility bills for the street lights, because we would own the land where the street lights are.
What's the difference in an easement, the easement that was going to be drawn up, or giving us the property?
With the easement, he would hold title to the land. It would be part of, I guess he would be assessed property taxes for that portion of the land. Not to say, I don't know if that would make much difference in the overall bill. We would have the exclusive right to use it for the pump station, and we would use it for our purposes for using it are limited to the pump station. So we could only use it for the specific purpose.
We have no plan to do other than that.
Correct.
And it's for
And we do indemnify, part of the easement is he was concerned about liability, but the easement says that we indemnify him and hold him harmless for any, any damage that we may cause, or if he's not responsible for our employees or anything we do because he's held harmless on the easement.
First time this has been done.
No, this is
regular practice.
This is the usual way now that we do it is under an easement. Going back in time, there's a lot of precedent of the county owning the property, but now it's generally an easement.
And the problem I have with it is this issue isn't the first issue that we've heard about at the last minute, and we've been dealing with this, trying to get them at the table for well over a year. Maybe 2.
You said 3 years?
3 years.
And this
We had to redesign our drawing because he had some concerns. We had to send it back to the engineer to redo the plat.
The last drawing is the one I think we go with, and if he doesn't sign on for it, let's move on.
Yeah.
Your gentleman's concurrence, he has until the...
To accept the easement or not, so we don't want to explore him conveying the, okay.
The problem is the subdivision. If he was going to convey to us
31st of October, he doesn't...
And somebody make sure they send that message tomorrow morning. Because look, I'm willing to work with anybody about it.
Next.
All right.
Rosemary. You've been very patient. Hey, you haven't met her before tonight.
Before today, correct.
Yes, ma'am. What can we do you for?
We have our bylaws first.
Okay.
We revise them and we clean them up. And we're very happy with them.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved second to approve the requested change in the bylaws. This does include the change in the name.
Yeah, we have a separate resolution for that to basically to return it to the original name.
Let me back up then. The bylaws include the changed name. So we have to do the changed name first.
Do the resolution first. Do the resolution first, changing the name, and then after you change the name, then approve the bylaws.
Right. Thank you.
It's okay.
Resolution of name change back to Kent County Local Management Board.
Second.
Probably move a second to approve the requested name change to the Kent County Local Management Board. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Motion to move the changes to the bylaws.
I think we're all in agreement. Nobody calls it anything but the LMB.
Is there a second?
I don't know what. Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's probably moving second to revise the bylaws for the Kent County Local Management Board. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. It wasn't changed in any of our documents anyway, was it? Okay, yeah.
I don't know what it is, nothing but the local.
Some of our documents.
Yeah, and I think we found that there was action taken by the commissioners in 13 to change the name to Family Community Partnership. So you did need action to change it back.
Okay.
Now you have a good record of all that. You're set. You're all good to go.
You have to call us climb. Like a ladder.
It's been a long night. Okay, next? I think you have membership. Yep. I'm going to stop reading. Go ahead.
Is the next one is that
Appointments. Yeah.
And there's 3 new board member appointments.
one is she's an ex officio member, so for the public schools. So with this change in staff, a new person has been designated, and the 2 others are new appointments.
We can do all 3 of them at once. Do you have any
Motion to approve.
So, second.
Probably move a second to, reappoint and appoint individuals as named to serve on the Kent County Local Management Board.
There you go.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And now we have Pat Merritt, Chief Financial Officer, who has
She's found some money for us somewhere. I can tell what
this marathon meeting.
Yes. Well, this will be relatively brief. You should have 2 budget amendments. I guess we'll take a look at the one for 2017 first. I'll change the format a little bit to try and make it a little more user-friendly, so hopefully it's a little easier to follow. The 2017 adopted budget was $51,209,953. And our amended budget is we're requesting to be $49,783,402. And there's really 4 main reasons why we amend the budget. And there's 4 columns here that show what those adjustments are. So the first column is fund balance, and that's either that revenues or expenditures have come in higher or lower, and we're going to need to either use more or less fund balance resources. The second reason is contingency. We approve amounts out of that all year long, and we reclass it out of contingency and put it in the departments where it's being spent. The third reason is we get additional revenue from an outside source, an additional grant, monies we didn't know about at budget time, and a corresponding expense. And in some cases, we just have reclasses amongst our departments. So if we look at the detail, I think the second page you have there, as you can see from the schedule, the main reason for the adjustment is the adjustments to the fund balance. They total $2,193,189. And the largest portion of that is capital projects that are going to be pushed out into next year. So we're going to use $2,193,000 less of fund balance, but when we get to 18, you're going to see that we're going to use more in 18. Those projects are really just crossing years. So we also had some adjustments to our income tax number. We had a $443,000 adjustment. If you remember, the distribution percentage changed in November, so they're giving us more money. They're actually over-distributing us. We're going to take some back next November, but we're going to need less fund balance. And also the recordation and the property transfer taxes are ticking upwards. So we adjusted those estimates, those revenue estimates. So that's a good sign. And you can see the other couple small adjustments in there. But the main reason for fund balance is the transfer of the capital projects. On the next page, you can see all the contingency items that were approved by category. We had $120,000 that we used out of contingency this year. The majority of them were in general government. And you can see the list there of what those things were. Quite a variety. If you have any questions on that, we've kind of been through that before. Yeah. The next page would be the additional revenue. There's really 2 places where the additional revenue came in from. One was service charges. at the detention center and at Parks and Rec. We had a little bit more than we anticipated. And miscellaneous, our interest income at the bank has ticked upwards, so that was another increase. So those accounted for about $59,000.
With the, like the detention center and Parks and Recreation, that money, they don't use that for anything that wasn't already talked about in their budget without coming back to us and requesting that,
They
right?
would come back and ask.
But, so that money floats through the year, and then we, like right now, we're just adopting it to go back into fund balance. Yeah.
And the last one is reclasses. In most cases, departments reclass things within their own department, but in some cases, it moves between departments. And so a good example is the last one that's on here is the IT and emergency medical services. There was a piece of equipment that IT purchased for emergency medical services, so they transferred some money out of their budget into the IT budget to pay for it. So it's those types of things, and it's a very small piece of it, but there's about $39,000, and you can see the list of items there.
And that's generally when they get grants or something, and they move the grant over, correct? Things
Yeah,
like that?
it's mostly when there's, like another example is we had half a position that was in water wastewater that we transferred to the state's attorney's office. So it's things like that, and it happened very infrequently, and like I said, the whole thing, the position transfer was the largest item on here. So those are the items that make up the budget.
So we have to approve these resolutions.
As submitted.
Second.
Properly moved and second that which budget adjustment is this one? Budget adjustment number 9 for FY17 be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And the next one is FY18, and there's really only one item on here, but it's rather large, and it's the other side of that carryover of the capital projects. We adopted a budget of $49,473,447, and we're going to increase the fund balance resources that we're going to use by $1,315,000, and that is the result of two of those capital projects, the broadband and the Nicholson remediation.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second to, which one is this? Approve.
17-10.
That's right.
It's resolution.
Budget resolution 10 to amend budget FY 2018. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously. So it's just been a long evening.
Okay, well, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Lee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a few things for you this evening. The first is a letter of credit release request in the total amount of $49,082.58. This request is coming from Oxford Chase Development, and this is the Dollar General store in Wharton. The stormwater management was inspected on 8/25/17 and sediment control on 9/1, and all of the requirements have been met. So
Motion to approve.
Second.
Party moving second to release the Providence State Bank irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $49,082.58. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously, and the store is open.
wonderful. The second is a salary adjustment request, and this has to do with basically leveling the playing field for the attorneys that represent boards and commissions within the county. We are requesting that each of the attorneys are paid the same amount, and this can be absorbed within the budget.
Why don't we take the other attorneys and move them back?
Moving down, yeah.
They might walk.
I object to that.
You're the main one, huh?
I'll say this, that we had something we put out to bid recently, and the bids came in higher than what my rate is, and so we approved that position at the rate I have, and I inquired as to what some of the other ones were, and it seemed fair to have everybody at the same rate. So I support.
Skills the same. I mean, we're paying different positions, different skills.
They're attorneys.
Yeah, but they're not all created equal.
They have no skills.
Oh, damn.
Although I like to say I'm the most skillful of them all, I think this is my recommendation would be to approve it. I think it's appropriate, and we have.
I would think you'd have to abstain from this.
Well, it doesn't change. It doesn't. It doesn't change. It doesn't change my rate, but one of the attorneys has. I would say the rate's considerably. It's considerably lower than what is the typical rate for this type of work, and the attorney has put in many years of service and has been very faithful to the county.
Well, I am gonna abstain because he's actually my attorney. So I think it's right that I do abstain from raising a rate in that situation. So I will turn it over to my colleagues. Hopefully he's not there.
Okay, and
right, I understand that.
second, it's been probably moving second to provide equity for comparable services rendered to the county. Hereby increase the rate of all attorneys to be paid. In this particular case, $125 per hour to $175 per hour. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously with one abstention.
Next on the agenda is an annexation proposal, and it is put forth from the town of Chestertown. Chestertown is requesting to annex 145.11 acres. This is tax map 44, parcel 231. This is the wastewater treatment plant for Chestertown, which is actually in the county land. It's outside of their town boundaries at this point. The Planning Commission has reviewed it, and they recommend favorably approval. And
why does the town want to annex this? What's the gain?
Their property, their wastewater treatment plant within their boundaries.
Is there other properties between them? Don't they have to be contiguous?
You can't have an island.
It is contiguous, and MDP has reviewed it. It's contiguous, but it goes through a wetland area. So there was question about whether or not that was contiguous.
There won't be any other property owners affected? Yeah. Oh, okay.
There's law that says that you can have water between the parcels and you're still contiguous even if there's water there. There was a case in Denton that was litigated, I think, a number of years ago that resolved that issue.
I just don't see the necessity to do this at all.
And they're also requesting the waiver of the 5-year rule, which the Planning Commission has looked favorably upon.
Out of brotherly love, I'm going to say yes and make a motion to accept it.
I mean, if the property can't be used for anything except a wastewater treatment plant, and
solar panels.
I'll second it. Just
it's been probably moving second. Let's see, where's the motion here?
It's just to accept the annexation of the 145.
Towns 2017 annexation proposal and a waiver of the 5-year rule. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion is carried 2-1.
Several months ago, it was brought to our attention that there's a question about the structural integrity of the tower that's located on our courthouse property. So you requested that an analysis be performed on the courthouse tower to determine exactly how safe it is for climbers on this tower. Maryland Tower Service, specifically the owner's name is Bill Windsor, evaluated the tower. He's familiar with this type of tower. He did find some components of the tower that are structurally unsafe. He can identify those. The challenge to this particular tower is that it is built out of pipe. So you can see what you can see from the outside, but because the middle is hollow, he can't see. He cannot actually investigate inspect the insides of the pipes. So while there's been one breach, one actual place where it has come unattached, he can't attest to the fact that there aren't a lot of other places that are about to become attached. He recommends removing the tower. He has provided a quote of $20,325 to remove the tower, and should the county wish to replace the tower with a tower that could fulfill the same function, the total cost of removal of the old tower and replacement would be $40,825.
That's total.
That's total.
But IT doesn't need this tower.
Our IT staff does not need this tower. As far as we know, there is one internet service provider on the tower.
But there's no government use for this tower.
Not that we are aware of. There's a lot of equipment up there, and nobody can identify anything that's being used except for the...
See why we just don't remove the tower.
So that's your decision.
The person that is using it, is there an alternative way that, I mean, I don't want to put any provider, any people out of business overnight, but
there are other towers, but...
Is there an alternative to this thing? I mean, is something this person that's using it can get around?
There are other towers, but they're not owned by the county, so I can't talk to what's available.
How about if we make this individual that's using the tower aware of what's happened here, and find out if there's a way that if he wants to take a look at another option of putting his equipment somewhere else,
Or he could pay the expense of putting up the tower.
or repairing it.
We could tear it down because
Yeah, but see, if he puts up another tower, then we're still responsible for it.
If it's on our property.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
You can try to find another alternative.
That's sort of what I'm referring to. I mean,
Mr. Windsor was emphatic in saying that he would not climb that tower in the condition it's in. He does not believe it's safe to climb that tower. Even more of a concern, or maybe not as more of, but another concern is if the tower will come down.
I would make the person using it aware of our findings, and I mean, there's no way that we can go against this report and allow people to climb that thing.
Now that we have this information, I think this is a serious concern.
You want to give him 90 days?
You tell me.
Okay.
Not 90 days to identify a relocation. It may take him some time to do it.
90 days to come up with a plan.
But in the meantime,
He
I
shouldn't
don't know
climb
how
it.
you let somebody climb that thing.
Because up to this point, we've had a waiver.
He has a liability for
But
this,
we, right, but now that we know it's not safe,
We've been notified it's structurally
not safe, so
questionable.
we shouldn't have a waiver no more.
We can't ignore that.
Right.
Thank you.
Climb at your own risk.
Well, what if it comes down and
He has
one of
the
other
waiver
properties?
where he indemnifies us. I guess the concern we have is that we have more information now than we did at the time we gave a waiver. It went from, well, we don't know, we can't make any representations because we don't know for sure. Now we kind of know.
Yeah.
So that's the concern.
90 days to come up with a plan. Then
How long is this quote good for? I read 30 days.
I don't remember offhand.
I think I
Could
saw
be.
30 days.
Probably. Well, then we can go back to him for another quote, an updated quote in 30 days, or in 90 days, or 120 days, or. The next item on the agenda you've seen before. Last year, on September 20th, 2016, you signed a piece of documentation for MDE to access the courthouse properties for wells to evaluate the water quality. That one has expired, and there is an updated one in your packet. There are a few items which have been amended on this one that are different than the last one. I think both are favorable for the county. One is that there's a hold harmless clause, a really strong hold harmless clause, and the second is a lot of insurance requirements.
So moved.
And I'll second that, but whatever they're looking for must not be too important. And they certainly know in no hurry. No.
Okay. It's a motion to approve the consent to access property at 103-105 North Cross Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried unanimously.
And the last thing actually for action in my section is a request from the Social Services, Department of Social Services Advisory Board for 2 appointments for members, and both are filling vacancies, and if appointed, they would expire on September 30th, 2000.
Already move a second to appoint the named individuals to the Social Services Advisory Board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
And I have 2 report out items. The first is on our PACE program, the Clean Energy Loan Program. 2 surcharge agreements have been signed, and those are for properties 309 and 311 High Street. So this is very exciting for Kent County. Traction on that incentive. As Jim Luff mentioned earlier, it's just another incentive that we can use for businesses. The second is on August 15th, you had asked for some more information regarding the request for video archiving. So the IT department has been busy. They came up with a couple of options, and they asked for quotes on them just to verify, give us a ballpark of what we were talking about. So currently, as you know, we live stream the meetings and we archive the audio. It is not on our website to access that audio, but we can provide it on a thumb drive or any other means if requested. So to put those audio files as podcasts on the website is an option, and there's a cost quote in there for that. And in addition, there are cost quotes for 2 different live streaming options, should you be so inclined. The first would be to video archive all meetings that are held here that are currently live streamed. So planning commission meetings, ethics commission meetings, etc. And the other would be exclusively for the county commissioner meetings for the end of the year, from now until the end of the year.
But so have they come up with dollars, or they have
Yes.
not? Okay, so the podcast.
Okay, so the podcast would be $15 a month, so $120 from now until the end of FY18. To purchase the packet for video archiving for all meetings is approximately $3,600, and just the county commissioners would be $2,800. So again, from now until the end of FY18.
That's doubles once the time comes. So, I mean, what's the difference between hearing it versus seeing it? Looks like to me,
we already offer hearing it.
but you only offered it here. They have to come by.
Correct.
But if we put it on our website, that's $120, $20 or $16 a month, whatever it is minimal. They still get the same exact thing that they're going to get if
They can hear.
they can put their earbuds in, listen, and do whatever.
Right.
There's no purpose in having to see. Correct?
All right.
I mean, it seems.
And there's still extremely
dollars.
And there's still extremely comprehensive minutes.
Do what we're doing.
Yeah, but again, but to fix what the community's asking for, if we put it in a podcast and they have all access whenever they want it.
What the community asking for, or is it what a group is asking for?
Well, it's worth $16 a month to me.
I'll go along with the podcasting part. I won't go along with the other.
I agree.
So that's 3. So motion to accept the podcast proposal.
This is till the end of
Till the end of this
calendar year, right?
Calendar year.
No, fiscal year.
Fiscal year?
It's $15 a month or $120 to get to the end of FY18.
Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Motion to accept the podcast proposal that takes us to the end of FY18. Commissioner meetings on our website.
Second.
Properly moved and second. I'm not going to repeat that. All those in favor say aye. Motion's carried unanimously.
Thank you, Jim.
You have anything?
Still got closed session.
Anybody have any questions from the media types? Yes, sir.
This is a great time here. We're updating the comprehensive plan. Just had the strategic, what's the name of that?
Strategic plan.
Economic Development Vision Plan. And then in conjunction with that, the Planning Commission office is going to match up the land use ordinances. And then we come up to something like the 60-40 thing. And how did this happen? I mean, there are all these little things, and this has happened like at least 5 or 6 times since I've been. All of a sudden, something appears in the state thing that has Kent County. Why can't we have, when we update this, somebody look at all the state regulations, ordinances where Kent County's specific, and we look at it. And this 60-40 thing is ridiculous. It really is. Look at it. There. Find somebody why this thing's lasted this long. And it comes up every time. I can remember Marty coming in here. But it's things like that. You look at the 301 card. All you have to do is go out and take a walk out there and look at it. Wow. The Dutch man. If we had a microbrewery out there, we would put I-81 in Virginia out there. We have things like this. And that's endemic to the state. It's not our problem. So we can put it in our comprehensive plan, we can put it in our economic development strategy and all that. This is something where somebody's got to sit down and say, wow, this is bigger than us. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to figure this thing out. The wholesalers are controlling this thing. That's why we don't have any microbreweries. There's a microbrewery in Lexington, Virginia, started 10 years ago in a place no bigger than up here. Now it's beating Sam Adams on the East Coast with beer. They've got a warehouse. All these places repurposed buildings. Things like that. These are things that we got to put these things together. And I don't know. I'm not advocating another commission or something, but I think all these people got to sit down together and say, what do we need? I got to get it right. We got to have the land use ordinance and that's what they do. I mean, you look at it, and if somebody comes in Middletown, they're lined up. If you look at their 40-year debt, I mean, that's a divorce, right? You look at how we're going about it, I think it's the right way for 20,000 people. But I think there's some things that we've got to do, and we just can't have this. You guys talk about spend $15 a month. Then we have this, and these companies that are going to go out of business. We don't do something. And it's needless. Needless for them to have to put up with that. I mean, I think that's my opinion. And I'm not advocating, out of swill hole, where all we do is go drink, but I think it's very important that people can do business. And it's a fact of life. In the tourism business, people go to small places. I was in Luray Parish. If you've never been there, you ought to go. This little town of Luray was dying, and all of a sudden, put a microbrewery in there 2 years ago. We were there Saturday afternoon, and the line, I mean, it was like 100 people outside drinking in their beer garden. And the people coming from Luray, the caverns, and going, looking what we're doing. Put out I-81. You got an app. Microbrewery. Go down Route 29. Microbrewery. In addition to all their wineries. Their winery business is just kicked up. They're way ahead of us. minutes because I said I would be here till 9 o'clock.
Oh, that's why this meeting is so long. Yeah, also, you also have to recognize that there are residents and citizens of this county who are not in favor of what you're advocating.
I don't disagree, and let them go out and figure out another economic development.
Right.
I think that's it. We gotta live and let live. I'm not advocating, opening up strip joints. I mean, if you want economic
Well,
Sustainability.
be better on High Street rather than 301.
Al's got a wine pole dance.
That's right.
But no, I agree with you. There are people that want that. They don't have to go to the establishment serving free country.
Unfortunately, they don't view it that they don't like it, and you shouldn't like it either.
I don't think it's the point of them people being against liquor. I think it's because the wholesalers are controlling. Go try and buy a bottle of wine that's not on their list and see how much it costs. If you can get it.
Hard. Anything from the print media, other print media?
Her fingers got to have blisters on them because she.
I know.
Any other questions? None? Okay, good. No,
No, not so fast, Ronald Fithian. Motion to go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter. Legal advice of counsel confidential.
Second. All right, move in second. We go into closed sessions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're be closed.